They dazzled us in grainy close-ups and sweeping studio sets, and then in one way or another they were gone. Not retired or out of the public eye in a casual sense, but erased. Lives that Hollywood made visible and then, with equal efficiency, made disappear. Some walked away by choice. Some were pushed so hard they fell. Some simply vanished in ways no one could explain. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll unpack 15 of the strangest, saddest vanishing acts from Hollywood's golden age. Women and men who once filled marquees and magazines, then faded into shadows. These are stories of talent and cruelty, of systems that remember profits and forget people. Stay with me. By the end, you'll see there's a pattern behind the vanishings, and it isn't accidental. One, Barbara Loden, made a masterpiece, then watched the door close. Barbara Loden's story begins with a film called Wanda, written, directed, and starred in by Loden at a time when female directors were nearly extinct. Wanda was raw, unsentimental, and refused the tidy redemptions Hollywood demanded. It won critics' prizes abroad, and yet the American industry treated it like a provocation. Instead of opening doors, the film seemed to shut them. Loden continued to teach and act in theater, but Hollywood's machine turned away. When she died at 48, cancer made her absence permanent. It also froze the sense that a remarkable directing voice had been erased before it could be heard. 2. Jean Spangler, a note, a purse, and a mystery that never closed. Jean Spangler didn't drift out of sight, she vanished. In 1949, she left a cryptic note and a purse near Griffith Park and disappeared. The note mentioned Kirk and Dr. Scott, and rumor immediately spun toward Kirk Douglas, who had worked with her, a connection Douglas later denied. The case remains one of Hollywood's most baffling cold mysteries. Nothing definitive, only speculation, and a story that reads like a film noir in which the final reel was lost. 3. Philip Ober, the familiar face who stopped appearing anywhere. For decades, Philip Ober was everywhere. Authoritative, dependable, the character actor audiences recognized without always naming. Then, in the late 1960s, he simply stepped out of public life. No interviews, no retrospectives, no farewell appearances. Ober's disappearance wasn't dramatic, it was total. His vanishing is a reminder that even the people who support Hollywood stories can be quietly removed from its memory when they leave the system. 4. Kathleen Case. One accident, a lifetime erased. Kathleen Case was being groomed for more, the sort of studio investment that gets careful publicity and patient role building. In 1953, a tragic car crash in which a motorcyclist died changed everything. Legally, the matter was resolved with probation and fines, but Hollywood's moral machinery applied its own harsher sentence. Case's contract evaporated, and offers stopped coming. The accident, accidental, human, became her scarlet letter. Men in similar situations were often forgiven, she never was. For decades, she lived on the margins, effectively erased by an industry that judged women differently. 5. Greta Garbo. The most famous deliberate disappearance. Greta Garbo did what many dream of, but few achieve. She walked away at the height of her fame and then refused public life entirely. Garbo engineered her own disappearance with surgical precision. She turned down interviews, refused memoir deals, and cultivated an anonymous life in New York. Her withdrawal was not enforced by scandal, but asserted as the ultimate act of autonomy. Garbo's vanishing is an extraordinary case because it was chosen. The most famous exit executed with absolute control. 6. Dolores Hart. From Hollywood kisses to monastery silence. Dolores Hart kissed Elvis Presley on film at age 18 and seemed positioned for a long career in the business. Then at 24, she made a choice unlike any other. She left Hollywood for the convent, eventually becoming a Benedictine nun. Hart's disappearance is not a tragedy, but a transformation, a renunciation of fame for faith. Her story complicates what we mean by disappearance. Sometimes being gone is a proclamation of new life. 7. Peggy Knudsen, a bright supporting player who closed the curtain quietly. Peggy Knudsen was a reliable presence in noirs like The Big Sleep, the sort of second-tier performer whose face lingers in the mind long after credits roll. Yet by the early 1960s, she had retreated from the public eye almost completely. Later diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, Knudsen withdrew from Hollywood circuits and interviews. Her exit combined personal misfortune and deliberate privacy, a soft disappearance that left little curiosity in its wake. 8. Carl Alfalfa Switzer, the child star killed in silence. Carl Switzer, Alfalfa of the Our Gang comedies, was a beloved child figure. Fame did not translate to security. By adulthood, Switzer struggled financially and professionally. In 1959, he died in a shooting over a business dispute, a violent end to a boy the country had known for his off-key singing and cowlick. The investigation and media attention were limited. The public's affection for the character did not translate into a full reckoning with the man's death. Switzer's case is a bitter example of how child stardom can become a life sentence of vulnerability. 9. Gail Russell, a beauty consumed by her own talent's cost. Gail Russell had the looks and a fragile talent that captivated audiences in the 1940s. She also suffered from severe stage fright and alcoholism. As the pressure mounted, the studio support that had lifted her evaporated. She retreated from public life and died alone, her passing not immediately noticed. Russell's story is a portrait of how an industry amplifies vulnerability, then abandons the person who carries it. 10. Mona Freeman, trading frames for paint. Mona Freeman was Hollywood's wholesome teenage ideal in movies like Dear Ruth. As the types of roles she was known for aged out, Freeman quietly remade herself as a visual artist. By the 1970s, she had stepped fully into that new life and largely disappeared from Hollywood conversation. Her disappearance was an act of reinvention, less an erasure than a deliberate removal of herself from the identity the studios had crafted. 11. Elizabeth Hartman, the brilliant actor who slipped away into darkness. Elizabeth Hartman's Oscar-nominated performance in A Patch of Blue confirmed a rare depth of talent at a young age. That same sensitivity, however, left her vulnerable to depression. Over decades, her work became irregular as mental illness gathered force, and in 1987 she died by suicide. Few were aware she was even still alive. Hartman's vanishing is painfully literal, a gifted life that fell through the cracks of an industry that neither supported nor sustained her when she needed steadiness the most. 12. Laya Leeds, a scapegoat for a system's double standard. In 1948, Laya Leeds was arrested in a marijuana bust alongside Robert Mitchum. Identical circumstances, radically different consequences. Mitchum's career survived with a managed publicity rebound. Leeds' contracts evaporated and her future was canceled. Her erasure reveals the gendered moral economy of mid-century Hollywood. When both men and women stumbled, the industry's protections distributed themselves unevenly, and women were far more likely to be punished into invisibility. 13. Betty Hutton, the showgirl who reappeared as a private teacher. Betty Hutton was electric, one of the top musical stars of the 1940s, an energy that could carry a film. But personal challenges and the collapse of the studio system combined to pull her off the stage. In later life, she used a different name and taught at a Catholic university in Rhode Island. Her disappearance from the limelight was dramatic. From stadiums and film sets to classroom anonymity, Hutton's reappearance as an ordinary person underscored how fragile even superstar status can be. 14. Tura Satana, too raw for her time, rediscovered by later generations. Tura Satana exploded onto screens in the cult classic faster Pussycat. Kill, Kill, a performance so forceful it prefigured later feminist reclamations of power and sexuality on screen. But her ethnicity and refusal to accept demeaning roles kept her from mainstream acceptance. For decades, she existed largely off the screen, only to be rediscovered by fans and critics who came to see her as prescient. Satana's vanishing wasn't total erasure, so much as a sidelining. The industry couldn't yet make room for someone she embodied. 15. Sondra Locke, talent, law, and the costs of public relationships. Sondra Locke's career, was intertwined with one of Hollywood's towering figures. At times, she benefited from that association. At others, she was painfully exposed to its risks. After a bitter separation and legal battles alleging she was kept from work, her opportunities dried up. Locke's story is complicated. Legal wrangling, personal wounds, and the slow attrition of an artistic life turned private. Where she once appeared often, she later became a footnote, a cautionary tale about how professional fortunes can be tied to intimate power structures.